In this video, I want to show you how to create a GitHub account and how to put your project on GitHub. And the reason why I want to show you that is that nowadays it's fairly essential for software engineers, especially software engineers that are starting off, to have some kind of online portfolio of their work that demonstrates to employers and colleagues the type of things that they can do and that they have done. And it ends up being this sort of great way to market yourself as a software developer because you've got this starting point for all these conversations with people about things you've done and the problems you've had to solve and how you went about doing that. And so it's a worthwhile thing to do. Even if you only got a few projects, it's a worthwhile thing to do to have a GitHub repository that you can send to employers and so forth. And I think sometimes people are intimidated about, maybe how hard it is to do, but it's not that bad actually to just throw up a project if that's all you're doing, especially. So let's just kind of create an account. And I'll just show you roughly what you got to do here. So I'll just put in some credentials and pick a username, and then you got to verify. They make you do this game here. Create account. Okay, and they'll send you some kind of verification email, typically speaking. So you click on that, verify. And then what you're going to want to do is create a repository. And your repository is basically where you're going to store your work. Now, GitHub is based on Git. Git is a version control system that it's actually been around for a while now, but it's there were other version control systems before it that were popular. But Git is the modern way that teams of software developers will coordinate with each other. And it lets you basically keep track of the different versions of your files. So if you've never used version control before, if you're editing your file and you make a change, what Git lets you do, amongst other things, is keep track of all those changes in a repository. And then if you want to kind of roll back to a previous version, there's commands available to do that. And it's also very good for coordinating amongst teams. It has facilities to help you do that and to help recognize changes you made in files that are impacting each other and so forth. So Git usually comes with Mac, I believe. I believe it was installed on my computer already. If not, though, you just come to Git and just download it and just grab the latest version of it. That's what you're going to have to use, though, to interact with GitHub. You're going to have to use Git. So just come to the Git website, download it. Then you go to create a repository and just pick a name. I'll just say project. And then I'll go to create repository. And then they give us a set of commands here that we can run on our command line to actually create some local files necessary for our repository and to commit the changes to GitHub, essentially, so they can be seen on GitHub. To do this, though, what I got to do is I've got to set up my Git locally to work with my username and email that I use for this account here. So I'm just going to say git config global user.name, give my username, git config global user.email, give my email. And then I'm going to go to a project folder that I made here, and I just put some project files in there for now, for my project. And then I can say I can actually just copy and paste these commands actually and run them this way. This will actually work. But I can copy and paste them and run them. And what's going on here, like just so you know roughly speaking what's happening, is this is creating a file called readme.md. This is initializing a Git repository. This is adding the README file to the repository and saying, hey, this is a file I want to keep track of in the repository. This is committing the file to the repository, and this is a commit message. So it's basically saying, like, okay, take this current version of the file and commit that change to the repository. And then this here is basically adding the ability for us to push our changes that we've made to this spot on GitHub. And what it's doing is it's saying like git remote add origin. So we're going to be able to use origin then to actually push our changes that we've made, or push our sort of local repository to this repository on to this location on GitHub here. And so if I actually see it, that code actually ran. If I actually look at my my project here, I'll see that something's actually already been committed here because I ran through those commands there. It's been pushed to GitHub. And if I see this, I got this readme.md project. So readme is a file that they give you in GitHub that allows you to describe your project contents, basically. And it comes with its own little markup language that allows you to basically describe what content you've got in your repository in a way that's been marked up with lists and links and things like that. So if I go to like vi readme.md, that's what the file looks like. And project is actually the title there. And there's a whole kind of syntax for that that's, again, kind of like get out of the scope of this video. But if you're just doing kind of basic stuff with it, it's not that bad. GitHub markup or markdown, I believe it's, markdown, I guess I should have called it. It's not too bad, though. It's just like £1 is basically like an H1 tag. £2 is like an H2 tag. And you can use emphasis and lists and things like this, right? So if I wanted to change this README to reflect my project, I could say like software architecture project, and then I could say this is my software architecture project, and I could put in like a list in there as well. So I could say like these are the design patterns in my project, and I could have some list describing what I've got here. Okay, so I could say like singleton, chain of responsibility, decorator, and model view controller. And then I could save that file there, save the change there. Now when I change the file kind of locally like this, it doesn't have any impact on my repository yet. To add that new version of my file to the repository, I've got to add it and I've got to commit it. So I'd say like git add readme.md, then I'd say git commit -m, and I'd say like new readme file with project description. And then to make that change reflected on GitHub here, I'd have to push it again. So I'd have to run that command again where I'd say git push -u origin master. And when I do this, it'll say it's doing some work. If I do a refresh here, I see that I've got my README file updated. And I misspelled architecture there. I should probably fix that. Why not? So I'll just add it again, and I'll just say git add, and I'll say git commit, and I'll say like fix typo, and then I'll do the push again to push that change. Fix title typo, push it again. So yeah. Now what I'd want to do is I'd want to get my actual source files committed. Now I've just kind of got the files in here. It's some Python code, so I've got like a bunch of Python files in here. If I wanted to just sort of add all the files in this directory to the repository so that they would be kept track of in the repository, I can just say git add dot, and then that'll add all these files then to the repository as things to be kept track of. And I can say git commit -m, and I could say like added source code to the repository. And then I could say git push origin master again. And then now when I do a refresh here, I'll see all my files here. And if I go to like, my main file here, I'll see what it looks like. If I go to my, logger file here, I'll see what it looks like. And so people can see your code without actually having to download or anything like that, which is kind of nice. The other thing you've got too is if you go to commits here, you can see the commits to the code. So you can see like the messages that I put in there too, like new README file, fixed title typo, added source code to the repository, etc. And so that's really it. Like, if you just kind of add your files and commit them and then, make a nice README file here using that markup, you've already got a decent public way of hosting your project right here. And there's all kinds of other stuff you can do with GitHub as well. You can make multiple repositories, of course, and host multiple things. You can also do things like use GitHub pages, which kind of allows you to make these very nice looking pages that describe your project, and you can actually kind of use that as a way of hosting your portfolio as well and pointing to all your projects. So anyways, that's all I want to show you, is just how easy it is to get something up on GitHub if you use these commands. And really that's it. All right. Thanks.